What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Atheist Roundtable. It is another TART live debate night. I'm Oz. I know you're sick of seeing my face and hearing my voice this weekend, but glad to have you. And got a special host with me tonight, Eddie Krum. What's up, man?
What's up? How you doing?
Chilling, man. Good to have you. Well, before we go any further, anybody doesn't know who Eddie is, Eddie has his own YouTube channel. Since you last minute jumped on and helped me, take a second, plug away. Where can they find you? What do you got going on?
Yeah, I've got like 1 million followers. Brute Facts on YouTube. I go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, and got David Ochopsky with Ratio Christie coming on tomorrow, and trying to get Pasta Mike on. Y'all need to start a get Pasta Mike on hashtag. He's too
hashtag.
Yeah.
He's the epitome of the what was it Lil Wayne said, real G's move in silence like lasagna.
Yeah.
So we had a really awesome weekend here at TART, and I won't go through every single show, but hopefully you caught the debate on Friday night, everybody. That one was epic, and tonight's will be awesome as well. But I do want to plug one thing real quick. So for those that know Jenna Belk, she's pregnant, and they're expecting in the first week of July, and we have a PayPal set up just for this. We're doing like a raffle to where you pick what you think the date of birth is going to be. So again, first week of July, so you kind of have a ballpark there, and you pick that. If you guess the correct date, whatever we collect, we're going to give the winner 10%, and the rest goes to the Belk family to help with that, because middle of a pandemic and all that, it's tough, and especially when it's your first child. For those that have kids, the first one can be a little more expensive because you don't have hand-me-downs and all that stuff there. So I just want to make sure we plug that. Jenna's a great friend of the show, and we want to try to help as much as we can. But
especially if it's going to be a girl.
Oh boy, let me tell you, I got two little girls, and they're little princesses. They want it all.
I love my girls, but man, they cost some money.
Yep. So we have a good debate tonight, and I want to give a little background before we bring Randolph and Gavin on. So they had a debate with us, I want to say a month and a half ago, right around there, ballpark, and it was on Is God a Moral Monster? And towards the end of it, the 10 Commandments came up, and Randolph said, actually, I don't like any of them. I don't agree with any of them, and that brought it up. And then now we're back for round two. So it's on the 10 Commandments with the backdrop being, that debate. So kind of everybody understands how we got there. But I've been looking forward to this. We've had this booked for several weeks. So let's bring these gentlemen on screen. What's going on? So we have Gavin, we have Randolph. Gentlemen, how are you this evening?
Doing well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm ready to kick ass. I hope you guys are too. So Gavin, real quick, just tell everybody a little bit about you. If there's any places that you want to want them to go to find you.
Oh, well, actually, if you ever come to New Zealand, make sure you come down and check out the Liga Kung Fu and kickboxing gym in Newmarket in Auckland. That's where you'll find me.
Is it like one of the world's oldest trees in New Zealand?
What?
Yeah. It's like some tree. It's like really old there. It's real massive. I forgot the name of it. Anyway.
Cowrie?
Where's Dr. Josh? Where's Dr. Josh? Eddie's trying to take this off topic. Jeez.
That's small talk, man. That's
He's on his break, maybe.
Randolph, how about you? Tell everybody a little bit about Randolph.
Hello, I'm in Canada. For those who can't see the screen, I'm the founding president of an organization here called the Canadian Atheists, and one of our primary aims is to normalize atheism in society, so that when people say they don't believe in any deities, they don't get vilified for it. Just like how it's very common for religious people to say that they believe in deities and there's no crazy reaction. So we just want the same treatment. And of course, we're concerned about human rights and whatnot. We're hoping that the normalization will catch on around the world, and human rights are an integral part of that. Freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, freedom of conscience, and so on. You can find out more about this organization at www.canadianatheists.ca. I also have a YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/Randolf Richardson. And do remember that my first name ends with a letter F, not PH. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Randolph. And the last person we'll bring on the screen here before we get into the details, we'll bring on the one and only Dr. Josh.
I feel like I should try to make that face.
That's what I was trying to think. When I was doing the video, I was like, I couldn't get a good joke. I need to get a good joke with that video, but I couldn't come up with it. But
you just have to get somebody going, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I can do it. I'm Canadian.
Canadian, eh?
So, Dr. Josh, if you want to take a minute and tell everybody about you and where they can find you and what it is that you do.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be here. So my wife and I run a YouTube channel called Digital Hammurabi, and I have a PhD in the ancient Near East and Assyriology with a minor in Hebrew Bible and a master's of theology. So I kind of dabble in all that stuff. And that's what our channel does, talk about the ancient Near East and the background of the Bible, and then just everything ancient Near East related. So you can find us at Digital Hammurabi. That's digital Hammurabi, a YouTube channel, or digitalhammurabi.com. And we have all kinds of cool stuff that we do.
And he writes books. Great books.
True.
So. Well, what we'll do, we'll go through the format here and then not waste any more time and get down to business. So the format for tonight, excuse me, we'll have 10-minute opens, then we'll have a 10-minute cross-examination, then a 40-minute open discussion period, 5-minute closes, and then we'll wrap it up with the Q&A with everybody that's in the chat. So any questions for anybody here before we get it going?
I just noticed that Kent Hoven's CPA gave you guys a super chat. I just want to say hello.
Oh, if those are already popping off, I'll do it real quick.
Kent Hoven. Oh man.
No, it's Kent Hoven's CPA.
Yeah, I know. I was just the name.
Yeah, we got to be really careful, okay? Because it's really important to get people correct. Okay? I'm here to help.
Wow. Hey, can you say something about my shirt in that voice?
That was epic.
That was a very good impersonation. I'm impressed.
It was good. I'm glad that's here live, so I can snip that out.
Would certainly approve.
But no, thank you, Kent Hoven CPA, for the super chat. Appreciate it. And then the newest member of the TART YouTube channel, Atheist Cats. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Atheist Cats.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, if nobody has any questions, we'll get this party started.
All right. I guess, Gavin, you said you're going to start, right? So have at it. I think they're going to time you as soon as you start talking.
Okay, I'll start now. Just want to say a quick prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity. Lord, I pray that you bless Dr. Josh and Randolph and Oz and all the other people involved with this debate. And we pray that the truth would come out in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. So the topic of the debate tonight is the 10 Commandments. So I'm taking the positive position in that they are true and that they are moral and I shall start. So I will start fast and accelerate as per normal. So let's go. No other document in world history has changed the world for the better, as has the Ten Commandments in the books of Exodus and Deuteronomy from the Bible. Western civilization, the civilization that developed universal human rights, created women's equality, ended slavery, I'll say that twice, and created parliamentary democracy, among other unique achievements, would not have been able to do so without these 10 prescriptions. As you'll see, as we unpack the 10 Commandments, they're just as relevant today as a moral code as they were over 3,000 years ago. In fact, they're so relevant that the 10 Commandments are really all that is necessary to develop a good and flourishing world that is free of tyranny and cruelty. So now imagine for a moment a world in which there's no murder, theft, adultery, or lying. In such a world, there would be little need for armies, police, or weapons. Men and women and children could walk anywhere at any time of day or night without any fear of being killed, raped, or robbed, or mugged. Imagine further a world in which no one coveted what belonged to their neighbour, a world in which children honoured their mother and father and the family unit flourished and thrived. And I'm talking about the traditional family unit, two parents and children, not single parent families. And a world in which everybody obeyed the injunction not to lie. So everybody was honest. This would be a great recipe for a good and flourishing world. And that is embedded in these 10 sublime commandments. But, and there's always a but, there is a catch. The 10 commandments are predicated on the belief that they were given by an authority that's higher than any man, any king, any regime, or any government. That's why the sentence preceding the 10 commandments asserts the following: I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt where you were slaves. And here's why it was the God of the Bible who spoke these words. If the 10 commandments were given by just a human authority, then any human being could justifiably say, who is this man Moses, or who is this King David, or this Queen Esther that I'm reading about in this old book? And who is this government to tell me how I should behave? So why is God indispensable to the 10 commandments? To be perfectly blunt, if it's not God who declares that murder is wrong, then murder isn't wrong. This will strike some people in the audience watching this as a little bit silly, incomprehensible, or even absurd. And some of you are probably thinking, is Gavin saying you can't be a good person if you don't believe in God? No, I'm not saying that at all. Of course, there are good people, great people who don't believe in God, just as there are bad people who do believe in God. And there will be people watching this debate thinking, well, I believe murder, theft, adultery, and lying are wrong, but I don't need the God of the Bible or any God to tell me that. But this is a response that's only sort of half true or lukewarm true, because I've no doubt that if you're an atheist and you say you believe murder, theft, adultery, and lying are wrong, you really do believe murder, theft, adultery, and lying are wrong. But the reality, excuse me for tripping over my tongue, but the reality is you do need God to tell you, because we all need God to tell us. Now, even if you figured out at an early age, without any influence, any religious influence or any biblical exposure, if you figured out at an early age on your own that murder, theft, adultery, and lying are wrong, how do you know these actions are wrong? Not believe they're wrong, but actually know they're wrong. The fact is you can't, because without God, right and wrong are just personal beliefs, personal opinions that are as common as nostril hairs. Everybody's got them, but they don't mean much. For example, John Smith might think that shoplifting is okay, but I don't. Unless there's a God, all morality is just opinion and belief. And almost every philosopher, whether secular or theist on the planet, acknowledges this. And I'm talking about philosophers like Noam Chomsky and Thomas Nagel. Another problem with the view that you don't need God to believe that murder, theft, adultery, and lying are wrong is because of the human carnage and bloodshed that results from holding the view that you don't need God to tell you what's wrong. All we have to do is look back in history to the French Jacobins, Stalin's Soviet Russia, Hitler's Nazi Germany, Mao Zedong's China, Pol Pot's Cambodia, Mobutu Seko Zaire, which is now called the Democratic Republic of Congo, Idi Amin Uganda's, Nicolae Ceausescu's Romania, the 1994 Rwandan genocides, where between 500,000 and 600,000 Tutsis were hacked to death with machetes. That was only 27 years ago, for goodness sake. Today, we've got China's Xi Jinping and everybody's favorite bad guy, North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Now, these are all stellar examples of the human meat grinder that is only a heartbeat away when mere men push the higher power, the high authority of God aside and replace God with themselves. So given mankind's history, I wouldn't be too confident about a human being's ability to figure out right from wrong without a high authority. It's very easy to be swayed by a government, a regime, a demagogue, an ideology like atheism, or a media sensation, or a movie star, to reason that the wrong you are doing isn't really that wrong. And even if you do figure out what is right and wrong, God is still necessary, because people who know the difference between right and wrong still do the wrong thing sometimes. Why is that? The reason is because we can. We can because we think no one is watching. But if you recognize that God is the ultimate source of all moral law, you believe that he is always watching. So if you're an atheist, you would still want everybody else to live by the moral laws of the Ten Commandments. I think this is a fact. And even an atheist has to admit that the more people that believe that God prescribed them, and therefore they're not just subjective human opinion, the better the entire world would be. So just to close, in 3,000 years, no one has ever come up with a better system than God's inspired Ten Commandments for making a better, more flourishing world. And the fact is, no one ever will. And with that, I yield the rest of my time to my learned opponent.
Whenever you're ready, Randolph, go ahead.
Oh, somebody muted me, I see. Okay, no problem. Thank you. Thank you for that, Gavin. We'll get into some of those points later. I'll just begin with my opening statement that I think the way it looks to me is that legal systems developed independently of religions, and perhaps early attempts at a quasi-legal system came in the form of religions in certain cases, but they were problematic because they tend to be authoritarian and absolutist, and so they're inflexible, and so people need to change them. Legal systems need to change with the needs of society. So right off the bat, that's a big problem with the Ten Commandments. They're inflexible, and they're not applicable, and in many cases, they're also immoral. Exodus 20 from King James Bible is commonly, as I understand it, by many Christians for defining the Ten Commandments. It is defined in different ways in different parts of the Bible, but this is kind of the most common one that I've encountered, so it's what I'm going to address. So if you look at Exodus 20, the third verse begins with the first commandment, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." My objection to this is that it limits religious liberty. So if you're a polytheist, you're out. If you're from another religion, you're out. You're not complying with this commandment. And that is, to me, all these things that limit our liberties is immoral and unethical. Commandment 2, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth." Again, this limits freedom of expression, because to make images is an art form. There's, and it goes on to serving and whatnot. The Lord gets a little off topic and starts talking about, apparently, about how he is a jealous God. And so I think that jealousy is clearly incompatible with justice, for justice needs to be impartial and fair. And jealousy is a bias that when it's part of a judicial process, it can result in some very horrible results for people who otherwise would not. You need to have things that the punishment fits the crime, and jealousy can interfere with that process. It also, unfortunately, the deity is also promising to punish others without regard for whether they were even involved in the alleged transgression in the first place. So it's dragging in offspring, multiple generations of offspring, punishing them for that. And we look all the way back to Adam and Eve, and the story goes that all women are punished with painful childbirth because Eve ate the apple. The punishment does not fit the crime, and it victimizes people who had no say in it and had nothing to do with it. That's immoral and unethical. Commandment 3: Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord of the Lord thy God in vain. The Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. This limits again freedom of expression, and also prevents the deity from being held accountable for his wrongdoings. If you want people to take your laws seriously, they need to have an avenue of redress. Otherwise, it's not a justice system. It's just authoritarian. You do what I say, no questions asked, is unethical. And it talks about Commandment 4. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. This limits the freedom of a person to set their own work schedule. Commandment 5, honor thy father and thy mother. So some parents are abusive and do not deserve to be honored. In fact, a really really sharp example of this would be Isaac, who I think has an excellent justification for not honoring his father, Abraham, who attempted to murder him under God's command, ironically. This God who says in Commandment 6, the next one, thou shalt not kill. He should have seen that coming. He knows everything after all. By the way, there are scenarios where killing is helpful or necessary. For example, mercy killings on a battlefield, assisted suicide, self-defense, where killing is necessary to defend yourself. So, thou shalt not kill does not address these. And the word kill, by the way, is used throughout the Bible in the Hebrew version. And it, as I understand it, very clearly means kill in these commandments as well as other places. So God commanding genocide and whatnot, that's a lot of killing. If he's commanding murder, that's pretty bad. Commandment 7, thou shalt not commit adultery. This limits marital freedom. For example, open marriages, by requiring police enforcement. Police in the bedroom does not sound good to me. This cannot be a law because married people need to be free to resolve such matters on their own or to seek court assistance as they deem necessary. Commandment 8, thou shalt not steal. Generally a good rule, but it's problematic because it's presented as absolute. It fails to consider, for example, somebody who needs to steal something back from someone who stole it from them because they can't get help elsewhere. So there are problems again with this. But it is generally a good rule, but I don't fully agree with it. This is the only one where I got that way. Thou shalt not, okay, Commandment 9, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. In the Old Testament, neighbor referred exclusively to Hebrew kin. So it's not really what they think it is. But let's just say we're talking about other neighbors aside from just Hebrew kin. It's still problematic because it's absolute. For example, if lying is being used to protect a person in your neighborhood, such as saying they're not here in Nazi Germany, where people were hiding Jewish people in their homes from the Nazi regime. So they're going to lie and say they aren't there when they are, or lie about who they are because they're able to pass for a German when they're actually not. The 10th commandment, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is belongs to thy neighbor. So everything there is property. This limits freedom of thought and opinion, Coveting is also important because it's a significant progenitor of progress when in the form of aspiration. This is a curious list because it seems to imply that wives and servants are a neighbor's property. And I'll just quickly point out that the Ten Commandments seems to be missing an objection to human slavery and treating women unequally. Women are not property. Women are people just as much as men are. And men, I think, should aspire to be equal to women. Thank you very much.
Eddie, got to take yourself off mute.
Forgot I was muted. That's yeah. When you live in a house full of females, you learn to just mute yourself sometimes.
That's probably part of the origins of hashtag Mute Oz.
That's right. Your wife and daughter started it.
Dude, shut up. Yes, dear. So round one opening, how'd you feel like that went, Eddie?
It's pretty in depth. I mean, I thought it was pretty well done by both of them. So.
Yeah, they both did their homework, and really at the end of the opening statements, I don't have a lot to say because that's really just each person laying out their argument, And now the cross section, and then when we get to the open dialogue is when it starts getting juicy. Juicy. So
starts.
Yep. So real quick, just in the chat, everybody that's here hanging out with us, I saw a lot of new names in there. Thank you very much for checking out the Atheist Roundtable. And we try to get at least one or two debates a week or every 2 weeks. We're having more and more requests come in, so we'll keep you guys up to date as they come in. But let's get them back on here, and let's get down to business.
All right, so this is going to be the cross-examination section. I think, Gavin, you're going first. One thing that I just want to make sure we point out, Gavin, I think because Randolph's audio is a little sensitive, I'm not sure how else to say it. If he's not muted, it tends to drown out what you say, Gavin. So you just try to speak up as much as you can.
Okay, speak louder.
Yeah, if you just because it seems like, Randolph, your mic is kind of sensitive.
Oh, okay. I thought it was okay earlier. I can stay muted until I talk. That's fine.
All right, so Gavin, this is your 10 minutes to cross-examine Randolph. So have at it.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Dr. Josh. Thanks, Randolph. Good opening. So what I want to do straight away, I want to try and steelman what Randolph was saying. I think this is fair because then it makes it seem like we're both on the same page. So from what I could get from what Randolph was saying, and Randolph, you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed to me you were saying something along the lines of legal systems develop independent of religion. Legal systems need to change with the needs of the people. And you went through the 10 Commandments, and you were saying that you shall have no other gods but me is not a good commandment because it takes away, I think you said, human freedom.
Which commandment was that again? It cut out for me.
The first one, you shall have no other gods before me.
Religious liberty.
So that, in your view, cuts out religious liberty.
Well, it does cut out religious liberty. So, yeah, I stated that fact.
Right. Well, if you're a Christian, it doesn't cut out any religious liberty. So the other objection you had was,
I agree.
God said, don't worship any other graven images but me. Again, cutting out religious liberty.
No, this would be freedom of expression that one is limiting.
Right. Freedom of expression. Okay. But again, too, you know, for the Christian, that's not a big deal.
We can talk about that later.
Yeah, sure. So you also talked about God saying he was a jealous God, and you thought that was very, very unfair. And you thought that the jealousy that God was expressing was not commiserate with a fair God, a just God, and that would color God's judgment. This is kind of what I was getting. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you also said that.
Yeah,
way you go.
Yeah, I didn't say that it's a problem for God to be jealous, but I said it's a problem for a proper justice system to have jealousy in the mix.
Okay, gotcha. Problem for proper justice system. Okay. And also, I think, see, here's the problem with trying to steelman somebody. You're writing flat out, trying to keep up with what they're saying. And you also mentioned, I think you mentioned you thought that the 10 Commandments were unethical.
Yeah, the commandments that I specified are unethical. Yes, I didn't state all of them are, like the one about thou shalt not steal or commit theft. I don't really have too much of a problem. I don't fully object to that one. I only partially object because I do think it's generally a good rule. I don't think it should be a law to that extreme for absolutely everything. It needs to be situational.
Yeah, sure. You mentioned also too about the commandment for children to obey and respect their parents, and you mentioned that some parents are abusive and not worth honoring. And look, I totally agree with you. However, those kinds of parents, they are the exception, they're not the norm. So I would take issue with an objection to that. Now, you also talked about the commandment, thou shalt not kill. That's not actually true. The commandment is, you shall not murder, or thou shalt not murder. So you've got the word kill there instead of murder. So I don't think anyone would take issue with the commandment, you shall not murder.
I got that word from the Bible, so take it up with the authors of the Bible is what I say to that.
Well, no, I say that most Bibles will say you shall not murder. It's very, very clear. So now another thing you which kind of stunned me a bit, you objected to you shall not commit adultery, and you said that this is again restricting human liberty, particularly in the terms of like open marriages. I'm quite dumbstruck with that kind of thing.
Well, you're understanding my position anyway.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to do. I want to steelman it. The command not to steal, you'll have to refresh me on the reason why you thought that was not good.
Sorry, which one?
Don't steal. Don't be a thief. You know, don't steal from someone.
Yeah, so I think that this one needs to take into consideration the situation. And one situation I present is that perhaps somebody steals your tools. And I'm just throwing like woodworking tools, for example. And then you see them there, you know the person who's stolen them, so you steal them back. So do we charge both people with theft? The original owner has a right to take them back, but they have to go on somebody's property to get them. So, of course, this is where a judge needs to deliberate and figure out what's going on. There's also the case of people who are starving that I didn't mention, young children starving and stealing a loaf of bread. Now, of course, there is a problem with theft there. However, the situation warrants a solution that's different than something extreme and needs to take into consideration all the different aspects. So thou shalt not steal, I think, is not a black and white legal issue. I think it's one that has to consider the scenario. And the impression I get from the 10 Commandments is that it's just a black and white authoritarian order.
Okay. So the next one was bearing false witness to neighbors. Essentially, that's saying don't lie. And
it mentions neighbors.
Sorry?
It mentions
Sorry?
neighbors. It does mention neighbors.
Yeah, Jesus Christ was very clear about what the word neighbor meant. It means every other human on the planet.
My understanding from religious scholars and whatnot is that it was in the Hebrew text referring to other Hebrews only.
Well, I would talk to a few other biblical scholars about
I
that.
did provide an example that applies to any neighbors, though, too.
Like I said, any neighbors means every other human being. Now, the last thing I've written down, this might be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong. You took issue with the fact that the last commandment is you shall not covet anything of your neighbor because that limits our human freedom. I might have got that wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong.
It limits our freedom of thought and our freedom of opinion right off the bat.
Okay.
Because we can desire and covet things without acting on those desires. But that commandment is telling us not to do that. It is limiting our thoughts and our opinions.
So the last commandment to you limits our freedom of thoughts, actions, and opinions. Would that be right?
That's for the 9th commandment.
Then not.
Sorry, no, that's the do not covet one. Which one is that?
The last one, the 10th one.
The 10th commandment, sorry, yeah. Limits freedom of thought, and I suggested that coveting is also a significant progenitor of progress when in form of aspiration.
Okay, so
there's also some problems with this referring to wives as property and stuff like that.
So the last commandment you have a problem with because to you it limits our thought, actions, and opinions. Is that pretty close?
No, it limits our thoughts and opinions. I didn't say it limits our actions.
Not our actions? Okay, just limits our thoughts and actions.
No, I had mentioned actions, but not as one of the things that's limited. It limits our thoughts and limits our opinions.
Okay.
I'm okay with Gavin having an extra minute because I did talk a bit long. He can take it out of my time.
No, I'm done. I'm finished.
Okay. I really enjoyed that. That was, I think that was really, 9 minutes. It's really good.
Okay, great.
And I was willing to give him some more time because I know I talked a bit there.
No, it's fine. It's fine, Randolph. I just wanted to make sure I was still manning your position correctly.
Yep. So you had stated that the 10 Commandments are true and moral, and I've given examples of how they are not. So I guess that's what we're going to be getting into. You had credited the commandments for universal human rights. You credit it for ending slavery. You credit them for creating democracy. And you claimed that they are all that are necessary to develop a world that is true and healthy. You stated that with the 10 Commandments, there would be no need for armies, police, etc. And people would be free to walk late at night without being attacked and sexually assaulted and whatnot. Am I understanding that correctly?
I said there would be little need for armies, police, or weapons.
Oh, little need. So
yeah, little need. I didn't say there would be no need. I said,
okay.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah.
All right. So that demonstrates that they are not perfect, but you're not claiming perfection. You said that the 10 Commandments promote a traditional family unit of one man and one woman. Is that correct?
Yes.
How do they do that?
Well, sorry. Well, when I say traditional family unit, I mean one husband, one wife, and children.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, exactly. But I mean, I'm very curious to know, I'd like to examine this later, how you come to that conclusion that the 10 Commandments do that, because I'm not connecting the dots there. I'll need your help on that.
Sure.
You predicated on the belief that they were given a celestial, okay. Yeah, you said, oh, hang on here. I'm just going through a couple of notes here.
Sure,
Here.
take time.
Yeah. So you're saying that people need a God to tell us what's moral, because why? We wouldn't know without God. And you're wondering how people know these actions are wrong, and that we can't know them without God. I think that this is a major insult, but we can get into that later.
Sure.
Okay. You're saying that atheists reject the idea that God isn't needed to tell people what's wrong. And I'm wondering what happened before religion.
Sure.
Yeah. You stated that atheism is an ideology. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's not an ideology. It's a classification of not believing in deities. There is nothing in atheism that's anything more than that. That's all it is. Now, there are some atheists who do have certain ideologies, and that can be problematic. And there are atheists with other ideologies that aren't. But there is no inherent ideology for atheism. Atheism is just free and clear. Just a non-belief in deities. That's all it is. You stated that we can do no wrong, that we believe that we can do no wrong because we think no one is watching. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. And I would like to get to the heart of that at some point, because I have an objection to that. I find it strange that there's an all-powerful celestial spy who sits back and allows everything to happen. So thank you very much. That concludes my cross-examination.
Eddie, is you ready?
Yeah, I just on the content there.
What had happened was,
What had happened was,
in case you didn't know, this is a new form of TART live debate night.
I like this one. So I can get down with this one.
Okay. So we had the cross-examination, and I'll use examination loosely there, but cross-examination. How'd you feel that went, Eddie?
Oh, that was pretty good, man. I like how cordial and informative it is. Sometimes you like to see people duke it out, but sometimes it's good to, just have that bit of civility, a little humanness. So.
Yeah, and so far, and for those who don't know, I think it's cool for this debate, because normally we have two atheists, hosting it. But Eddie is a Christian, so we have both sides of the argument here on when we kind of analyze here. But so far, it's still going back to a God.
Yeah,
God is So I'm really excited to get into the open discussion and see if we can start breaking down why they are or are not moral, now that we've got through the groundwork there. So again, everybody in the chat, thanks for your participation and hanging out with us tonight. You guys have been amazing in the chat, and I'm working on the one thing. and we'll see what we can do. But let's get these gentlemen back on here, and they'll have 40 minutes of open discussion. Let's get it.
You can go ahead and ask first if you like, Gavin.
Sure. Okay. So I'd like to ask you, Randolph, where do you get your sense of absolute morality, truth, and logic from?
I don't believe it's necessary, first of all, to have an absolute sense of those things. And I certainly don't. My feeling on morality and ethics is that they're kind of situational, they're subjective, and to have something that's objective would mean that it would have to be independent of a mind. So the fact that photons travel at a particular speed that's expressed in physics as the letter c is a fact that is independent, that is objective. It is independent of a mind. But morals and ethics are dependent on minds. So that, first of all, I have to reject the necessity aspect of that. So the other that you're asking about, the other aspect of your question I'll answer is where I get them from is from my own personal standard, and people have different approaches that they use, but mine includes trying to consider what the situation would be like for other people, particularly those affected by my decisions. And when it comes to making laws, I have tremendous respect and greatly value John Rawls, R-A-W-L-S, work in his publication Theory of Justice. In specifically the concept of the veil of ignorance, which is a very important thing in lawmaking, because it considers, the idea is for the lawmaker to consider what happens with all the different roles in society. So the way the mental exercise works is that you're the lawmaker drafting up the legislation, and you need to think about the possibility that you could be thrown into society in any role, in any walk of life, with any kind of disability or sickness. You could be either sex, you could have any kind of sexual orientation, you could be any race, you may be bald, you may have a particular hair color that's a bit strange. It could be all kinds of different things. And the more that you can consider, the more equal that you can make that law for everyone. And that's the idea behind it. And I think that I use that as best as I can in trying to determine if my own decisions and assessments of morality are probably on the right track. And I say probably because I never know for certain, but I do my best.
So just to be clear, your standard of morality is your own personal standard. Is that right?
Partly, yes. And also I consider what other people's standards are in society, because I want to get along well with other people in society and have a good life, and I want others to have a good life too. So, of course, we also have a legal system which provides some guidance in these areas as well.
Yeah, so I'm talking about your own personal standards of morality. So would you concede that there would be some subjectiveness to your own personal standards?
I just said that that they are subjective.
Okay, well, that's a big problem. That's a major problem. And the reason is this: if you really believe that your moral standard is subjective, then you hold to what's known as a meta-ethical position called moral non-cognitivism. And moral non-cognitivism says that there are no moral truths or falsities. You can Google it. So if you're a moral non-cognitivist, which you will be, Randolph, because you've just admitted that your own personal standard is subjective, you will hold the position that Hitler and the Holocaust was neither immoral or moral. This is a delusional meta-ethical position to hold, because a non-cognitive denies the cognitive's claim that moral judgments are capable of being objectively true.
That does not describe me accurately, and your assumption about my views on Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime are basically a straw man. I call it out as a straw man argument attempt. It's attempted because I've identified it and I'm refusing it. The same argument could be made for your God, because your God has put these rules forward, and I consider them subjective as well. I'm not aware of any kind of moral standard that could be considered objective. The farthest I could go with it is if you and I were to agree that that something is wrong, like stealing somebody's bicycle, for example, then if we agree on this principle, which I suspect we both do, that we could make objective, or I should say non-subjective would be a better word to use, a non-subjective assessment on whether somebody else stealing that bicycle is making a moral action, is committed a moral action or an immoral action. We could do that, but we have to agree on things first before we can do that. I hope everything's okay for you there.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Do you need a minute?
No, I'm okay. I'm
Okay.
okay. So I'm going to hold your feet. I'm going to hold your feet to the fire about having subjective morals. You can Google this. You can Google what moral non-cognitivism is, and anybody that holds subjective morality, they are a moral non-cognitivist. So Google that while you've got a chance.
The description that you put forward to it does not describe me. I already stated that. So because you provided a description of it and I rejected it, I think that's already sufficient there.
Well, you can reject it all you like, but the fact is you claim that your own moral standards are subjective. So by that very definition, if you really believe that your morality is subjective, then you hold to a meta-ethical position known as moral non-cognitivism. This is common knowledge.
Okay, I'm gonna come in for just a second, guys.
I have a question actually, so go ahead.
I'm absolutely fine, obviously, with people obviously talking about morality, but because the focus of this is supposed to be on the Ten Commandments, I'm fine with talking about subjectivity and objectivity, and how, for example, how can Randolph say it's okay to steal or it's not okay to steal? But let's tie it back to the Ten Commandments if we can.
Okay. Yeah, I had a quick question. I was just hoping to get an example of some kind of thing that is a morality that is objective, that is non-subjective, that is objective, that is independent of mind.
Do you want me to give you an example of?
Oh yeah, I wasn't asking Dr. Josh.
So you're asking me what? What are you asking me? Sorry.
Can you provide an example of an objective moral?
You shall not murder.
So, murder what? You have to be more specific.
You shall not murder another human being.
Okay. And from the perspective of an alien species that's much more powerful and stronger than us, it's okay to murder us. Or let's say a deity. A deity wants to globally flood the planet and murder and kill off all these people. That's moral.
Wow, you're really struggling if you have to bring in aliens. You asked me for an objective morality, and I gave you one. You shall not murder. Do you want another one?
But I basically asked those questions to point out the problem with calling it objective. And the thing is, in order for it to be objective, it has to be independent of mind. It has to apply universally. Otherwise, it's not objective.
Well, you shall not murder is independent of human mind, is it not? It's a divine command.
I don't think that it's independent of mind. It requires people to observe it and agree with it.
That's your subjective opinion. I've already told you what's wrong with your subjective opinions.
Yes, it is. And your opinion is just as subjective as mine.
No, I don't think so. Okay.
You've got God on your side, right?
We can settle this really easily.
Okay.
What tools do you use at your disposal to arrive at absolute truth and absolute logic?
Absolute truth and absolute logic. I've never made the claim that I have absolute truth or that I know absolute logic. I try to understand these things as best I can.
Okay, so instead of dodging, how about just giving me an answer?
No. I'm not an absolutist.
How about giving me an answer to how do you arrive at truth and logic? What process do you use?
Well, the process of skepticism is a very useful tool for this. I take doubt as my ally. I try to do the best I possibly can to understand all variables, but I don't know what all the variables are, so I can only work with what I have available to me.
Okay, there's too much dodging going on here. I want to know from you what human tools you use to arrive at truth and logic.
Well, for truth, we try to validate things by, depending on what it is. We need to, like if somebody says, you combine these chemicals and you will get a certain reaction, then we can test that by getting a hold of those chemicals and seeing and observing whether or not the same reaction occurs. But when it comes to something else, like somebody is accusing someone else of committing a crime, then there's different evidence that's needed. So again, it really depends on the situation. What you're asking is a very broad question that I don't have one specific answer for.
You're dodging more than O.J. Simpson, Rudolph. Randolph,
this is not dodge. I'm trying to give you a straightforward answer here.
I'll say it again. It's really clear and it's really
Okay,
simple.
Hang on. Sorry. Again, getting to issues of like epistemology or how do we know things. I mean, again, I think those are good things and they can tie in here. I'm not seeing how it's tying in. Mm-hmm. So maybe because it's got to come back to the 10 Commandments, right? So, I mean, if we want to take one thing and we want to say, all right, let's talk about how do you know sorry, I don't want to give everybody what to say or whatever, but well, why is it wrong to steal or why is it wrong to, then we can do that. But let's try to keep it to the 10 Commandments, please.
Yeah. The problem we've got, Dr. Josh, is that I'm trying to get Randolph to tell me how he arrives at truth and logic, and then we can move into the 10 Commandments, because I need to know how he arrives at truth and logic. Once we know that, then we can get into the 10 Commandments.
Well, what do you mean by arrive at logic? I've already explained with truth. It has to be evidence-based generally, but different scenarios can require different kinds of evidence, but or different processes.
I have to say it again. How do you, Randolph, as an individual, how do you arrive at truth and logic? What do you use? What physical means do you use to arrive at truth and logic?
Oh, you're attempting to limit the scope of my options here, but it's not always, arriving at truth is not always by physical means. Sometimes it is by using logic. Sometimes it's by doing other things. So it really depends on what specific truth that we're dealing with. So you're asking me a very broad question and expecting a very specific answer that can apply in a black and white way to everything. And I can't provide you with that kind of answer.
Because you're dodging.
No.
I'm just wanting an answer. But you're not willing to give me an answer, so you're dodging. So anyway, let's move on to the 10 Commandments, shall we? Because this is going to go nowhere. Mm-hmm. You can disagree all you like, but I've asked you a fairly straightforward question, which you refuse to answer because you're dodging it. So let's move on to these 10 Commandments and what you don't agree with. Do you want to talk about the first one? What you don't agree with the first one?
The first commandment? Okay, yep. So the problem with the first commandment is that it limits religious liberty. And you did state that that's not a problem for a Christian because it limits, and that I agree with you on that part, because a person who is a Christian, of course, is not going to have a problem being a Christian under that Christian commandment. People who want to be part of a different religion with different deity or deities will be restricted if they have to adhere to that commandment. Or a Christian who wants to switch to a different religion will then actually be restricted by that first commandment.
Yeah, you do understand that the 10 Commandments, they're not legal laws. They're just moral rules, right? You understand that?
So how is that moral?
You shall have no other gods but me. How is that moral?
How is it moral to restrict somebody's freedom, their liberty of religion, their freedom of religion?
Because there is only one true God.
According to who?
According to the scriptures, according to general revelation, according to personal revelation, and according to a huge number of scholars across the planet. But here's the thing. That's a question that could be a whole nother debate, right?
Well, you just made a claim about it. You said that that's a fact, that there's only one deity, and then that somehow justifies the first commandment. If it was a fact that there is only that one deity, then there would be no need for that first commandment. So shall we eradicate the first commandment?
No.
Oh,
no.
so you lack some confidence in there being only one deity?
No, that's a silly thing to say. I lack confidence in the judgment of mere mortals, in the judgment of men.
Yeah,
So,
but if you say there's only one deity, and that deity issued these 10 commandments, and the commandment is saying thou shalt not worship any other deities, that's a useless commandment.
Why? Why is it useless?
It's redundant if that's the only deity.
But men make up other man-made deities, don't they?
Oh, it's not talking about man-made deities. It's just talking about other deities.
Wow.
Which seems to contradict your claim that that's the only deity.
Wow. You're making this so difficult and so overcomplicated. God is saying, you shall not worship any other deities but me, because men are fallible and men make up other deities that they worship.
Are you assuming that your God is? Are you assuming that your God is infallible?
Absolutely.
Then why flood the world? If he's infallible, he should have made everybody perfect and not have a need to flood the world.
That is a topic for another debate, and we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. We're going to.
Okay, I won't accuse you of dodging, but we can move on to the next commandment if you like.
Don't accuse me of dodging when you can't even answer a straight question.
I told you I'm not accusing you of dodging. I said I won't accuse you of dodging. So we can just go ahead and move on to the next question if you like.
So can you explain your comments about legal systems need to change with the needs of the people? I'd like to sort of find out.
Oh yeah, I can give you an example of that. We have computer systems were introduced, and at one point in our society, and then computers were used to collect private information about people. So new laws had to be created to protect people's privacy, on their privacy of that is on these computer systems, because it worked differently than paper forms that were used previously. So yes, the laws need to change. Sometimes the speed limits on streets need to be changed because people are more comfortable driving a bit faster or a bit slower, and so there can be different reasons for that. Or somebody may petition the government to change the laws because they see a problem with the current laws that needs to be addressed. So yeah, this is just a common thing that happens. And from what I see with the 10 Commandments is they haven't changed for over 2,000 years.
3,000 years.
Oh, okay. I can accept 3,000. I'm okay with that.
So what about them needs to change in your opinion?
In the 10 Commandments?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think that I think annihilating the first one, removing it, would be a very good first step, because that way people's religious freedom will no longer be limited.
The religious freedom to worship false gods.
Okay. What's your objection to that?
What's my objection to
People,
the religious freedom to worship false gods?
Yeah, what's your objection to that?
The Bible is replete. The Bible is replete of what happens to people when they worship false gods.
Sorry, what happens?
The Bible is replete. Replete means many examples. It's
I know.
Full of examples of what happens to people when they worship false gods.
Oh, what happens?
Nothing good. Nothing good happens to them. Nothing good happens to them. Yeah, the prophets of Baal, when Elijah challenged the prophets of Baal, all the prophets ended up with, I think, getting their heads chopped off, something like that. Yeah. So anyway, what else? What else has to change?
Sounds
What
like
else has
God
to
is a moral
change?
monster. Okay. So
Well,
basically,
that's your subjective opinion again.
yes, it is.
Yeah. Which
Um,
then, and because it's a subjective opinion, it degrades to moral non-cognitivism, where there are no moral truths or falsities. And that
Well-
is a delusional, medical, ethical position to hold. I will keep hammering that this whole debate. So what else? What else needs to change to the needs of the people?
So I'm not convinced that believing in a false deity is necessarily going to lead to bad things, going to lead to a person's head getting chopped off or things like that. If that's happening, who's making that happen? It's people from other religions, typically. It's, as far as I know, it's not the God doing that, because the God doesn't murder people because one of his own commandments says not to kill people, right?
One of his own commandments says, "Thou shalt not murder."
Yeah. And if somebody is worshiping a false god in his view, and let's say he kills them, would that qualify as murder? If he kills them for worshiping another deity?
So you're asking me a question that only God would know. That's not a wise thing to do because I'm not God. I don't have the mind of God.
Okay. So then how do you know that God actually issued all these commandments and it wasn't the people who were inspired by God to write them incorrectly?
Well, man, you're really struggling.
No, I'm not. I'm asking you a question. I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, you are. You are.
No.
Every word in the text, every word in the biblical text is inspired by God. God used human authors to write down his word. That is a fact that is well accepted on the planet. It seems to be well accepted by everybody except atheists. So what else in the Ten Commandments do you think needs to change with the needs of the people?
Well, people need freedom. So number 2 should be abolished, annihilated, removed. Commandment 3 also limits freedom of expression and needs to be eliminated.
Hold on.
Oh, we've got 20 minutes left. I'm trying to go quickly here. Okay.
Okay, so what's wrong with number 2?
People need to have freedom of expression. That's a human right, in my view.
People do
Now,
have freedom.
I point out to you that you claimed in your opening statement that the Ten Commandments is where human rights were created from.
Yep.
So one of the human rights is freedom of expression, yet Commandment 2 interferes with the human right of freedom of expression. So we have a contradiction here.
No, we don't have a contradiction. There's nothing contradictory about the Bible at all. God made us, created us with free will, right?
Okay, but you're changing the scope now.
With free will comes freedom. Free will must have freedom attached to it. Otherwise, there's no such thing as real, true love. For love to be real, it must have freedom attached to it. It must have that risk of turning your back on God and saying, I don't want anything to do with you. That's the risk that God took to give us free will. So we have free will. We have freedom.
Well, Commandment 2 says otherwise. It says, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or likeness of any things in heaven and above, etc. So that's a limitation on freedom of expression.
Well, it's not a legal law, right? It's not a legal law. No one's going to go to jail because of it. But people have chosen to worship other gods or worship other idols or turn their backs on God.
Then why does God follow up that second commandment by saying that he is a jealous God?
Because he is.
Okay, so that sounds like it could be very dangerous for somebody who is making graven images that he doesn't approve of.
Could be. Yeah, could be. That's up to God. That's up to God.
So that limits freedom of expression.
I don't think so. We have free will, don't we?
I certainly think so.
Yeah, so do I. I know we do.
So commandment 3, I think, needs to go. It limits freedom of expression as well. and it it disallows people to hold God accountable for his wrongdoings.
Yeah. Okay. So I think at this stage it's probably good to just get a real brief outline of the reasons why the Mosaic Law was introduced. The Mosaic Law was given specifically to the nation of Israel. It was made up of 3 parts: the 10 Commandments, the ordinances, and the worship system, which included the priesthood, the tabernacle, the offerings, and the festivals. So there's 7 bullet points that I'll run through really quickly. The purpose of the Mosaic Law was to accomplish the following. Number 1 was to reveal the holy character of the eternal God to the nation of Israel. 2 was to set apart the nation of Israel as distinct from all other nations. 3 was to reveal the sinfulness of man. Number 4 was to provide forgiveness through the sacrificial offerings for the people who had faith in the Lord in the nation of Israel. Point 5 was to provide a way of worship for the community of faith through the yearly feast. 6, provide God's direction for the physical and spiritual health of the nation. Now that's really important, the physical and spiritual health of the nation. And the last point for the Mosaic Law was to reveal to humanity that no one can keep the law, but everyone falls short of God's standards of holiness.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the last point. Reveal to humanity the what?
Reveal to humanity that no one can keep the law, but everyone falls short of God's standards of holiness. That realization causes us to rely on God's mercy and his grace, because we're in the time of grace now. When Christ came, he fulfilled the law and he paid the death penalty that we were supposed to pay. Christ took the bullet for us in our place. So that's the reason for the Mosaic Law.
Oh, and you're talking about vicarious redemption.
No.
You said Jesus took a bullet for everyone by, I guess, dying on the cross, right?
Being crucified and dying on the cross, yeah.
Yeah, that's called vicarious redemption. It's unethical.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not if you're God. It's not if you're God.
So if somebody stood in for Charles Manson so that he could get out of jail and decide to go to jail in his place, would you consider that to be ethical then?
No, that's a silly comparison.
No, it's not. It's a direct comparison.
No, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think vicarious redemption is ridiculous.
I think your understanding. Okay, let me ask you this. What do you think is the main theme, the central theme, the core theme of the entire Bible, from the opening verses in Genesis to the closing verses in Revelation? What do you think the main theme of the Bible is?
The main theme of the Bible? Oh.
Yeah, the central theme.
As much as I do think that like a theological discussion of that sort would be useful, unless it ties specifically back to the 10 Commandments. Like, this is interesting and I want to hear it, but
it does.
Too much. Okay, all right. I'll let it roll. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think there's just one theme, and it seems to be multi-themed. So I couldn't pick one.
You couldn't pick one. Okay.
Unless, I guess, it is to try to convince people to follow God's orders, I suppose. I'm not sure. There's so many themes in it. That would be an example of one. Do what God says or you'll be punished is one theme.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's another theme comes out is that everybody's born in sin. Again, like Dr. Josh was just saying, I'm not sure how this relates to the 10 Commandments.
Well, I can tell you how it points to the 10 Commandments, because biblical scholars all agree, even atheist biblical scholars, because there are atheist biblical scholars.
Yep,
they all agree. There are.
Yeah.
The central theme, the entire theme, the main thrust of the entire Bible is spiritual redemption, spiritual reconciliation. Not social reform, although social reform can be a byproduct of spiritual redemption. But the main theme of the entire Bible is spiritual redemption back to God. So that's where the Ten Commandments tie in? If the main thrust of the entire Bible is the spiritual redemption of mankind back to God, can you not see how these moral codes will aid men, seriously flawed human beings, of which I am one, and so are you, and so is Dr. Josh? Can you not see how these 10 divine moral guidelines, because they're not legal codes, these 10 divine moral guidelines can assist, can help seriously flawed human beings become spiritually reconciled with God?
No, because I don't know the mind of God, and you said you don't know the mind of God earlier, so I don't think you know this either.
Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Well, here's the thing. This is where Christians have always got the wood on atheists. The way
I see a lot of limitations in the Ten Commandments, a lot of arbitrary limitations.
that's your subjective opinion. It's only.
But the problem is, many Christians claim that it is the guide to morality, and the whole world should run on it.
Many Christians claim that they are great moral laws. It seems to be only atheists who have an objection to them.
No, it's not. I know some Christians who objected as well. And there's people from other religions who also object to it because they've got their own standards usually.
Yeah, well, you're probably talking about a tiny substrata of the global population.
Which denomination of Christianity are you saying that is promoting this?
So here's the problem. Here's the problem that the atheist has compared to the Christian. This is the way that the majority of non-Christians arrive at truth and logic. They use their senses and they use their brain to arrive at truth and logic. But there's a problem. There's a problem with that. Because the brain can be fallible and the senses can be fallible.
Yep.
You would agree with that. It's been scientifically proven that the brain can be fallible. However, the Christian obtains absolute truth, absolute morality, absolute goodness through the infinite mind of the God of the Bible. So we have access to infinite truth, absolute morality, absolute goodness. We have access to it.
The people who wrote the Bible, who were inspired by God, are you claiming that they were infallible when they wrote it?
The word of God is infallible.
That's not answering my question. The people who wrote the Bible,
of course, the people that wrote the Bible were mere mortals, right? They're men and women. They're men, just like you and I are. So yes, they're seriously flawed men. But the word of God is inerrant. It's infallible.
So if the people who wrote the Bible were flawed men, how do you know that the Bible is the perfect word of God?
Because the Bible has been the most investigated, the most pored over, the one book in the entire history of mankind that has been objectively and subjectively judged and looked at from every possible angle to find out if it's wrong. And it's not.
Well, I've just pointed out how the different commandments are wrong. They're problematic.
Well, again, that's your subjective opinion that dissolves into moral non-cognitivism.
So you're attempting to attack my character by claiming that I'm a moral non-cognitivist, but when you define moral non-cognitivism earlier, I told you that doesn't describe me. Not accurate.
I'm not attacking your character. You said to me that your principles are subjective. So yes. I'm pointing at the obvious. Man, this is common knowledge. I'm pointing at the obvious that subjective morality soon dissolves into moral non-cognitivism, which says there's no moral truths or falsities. That is a fact.
this is reality. Everybody seems to be that way. I haven't met a single person who is objective, fully 100% objective about everything.
That probably has a lot to do with the fact that none of us are perfect. Would you agree?
There you go. Including the people who wrote the Bible.
No, the Word of God is inerrant.
So how did the Word of God survive through when people are writing it? Did they write it or didn't they?
Okay. Sorry. I do love these theological questions. I really do. And we probably do have to deal with some of them. But keep trying to wrangle us back in. So can we focus back in on at least, we started to talk about stealing. We started to talk about, first, second, third commandments. Maybe Randolph, a way to do this would be
ask some questions.
Sure. Yeah, or to say, here's again why I think X is immoral, because I feel like that's the point of the discussion. Okay,
so sure, I'll pick one here. Let's see. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house or wife and servants, etc. Again, I think that this limits freedom of thought and opinion, and other commandments are placing similar kinds of limits on people's freedoms. And so I don't accept the commandments as having any authority in my life, because freedom serves me a lot better than following some rigid system. And I find that there's a lot of people in the world who are also enjoying their freedom instead of following these commandments. There's the problem is that the commandments are sorely outdated for today's society, and were problematic in old-fashioned society as well, in my estimation. And I really think that from my impression of this is it was an attempt at setting up some early social norms, a quasi-legal system of sorts, depending on how it's implemented. And it didn't work out. And we know it didn't work, that it failed, because people moved on and developed real legal systems that do have a feedback system in place where you can object to the laws, and you can push for change. You can petition the government to change the laws. You can become part of the government and become a lawmaker and change those laws for the better, hopefully. Some people don't, and that's why it needs to be an open system. So democracy and all this stuff is not promoted, definitely not promoted by any of these commandments, from what I can see. Because these are considered objective, and by people who like them for whatever reasons. And I'm glad that our society isn't running under these rules.
What moral objection do you have to the command, "You shall not murder"?
Okay, because there are scenarios where killing is helpful, and I'll give you some examples.
No, stop.
Okay.
The question is, what moral objection do you have to the command, "You shall not murder"? I'm not talking about self-defense. I'm not talking about killing in wartime. I'm talking about murder. What moral objection do you have to "You shall not murder"?
Well, let's take a look at capital punishment. It is systemic murder, because the people who are put onto death row are slated for execution against their will. It's a violation of their bodily autonomy, of their human rights. I actually don't think this is funny. I think it's very serious. You know that some people are wrong. You do realize. Excuse me.
Keep it on this row.
I'm trying to continue to explain here that you do realize. Excuse me. You do realize that there are instances of people being wrongfully convicted. And the problem with capital punishment in its current form, I'm thinking in the US in particular, but other countries are very much the same kind of approach overall, is that there becomes this deadline when they will be put to death. And that is a travesty of justice. In fact, I have written a solution about this, that it should actually, at the very least, just be a life sentence with, after a minimum year served, provide an option for the convicted person to appeal to a judge to confirm that they are willing to accept the death penalty. So I think that would be a much better approach. So I do think that that's an example of murder that's immoral.
Good dodge.
This
So
is not dodge. No, you don't want to address this. That's the problem.
You're better than O.J. Simpson at dodging. So apart from those who serve in the army,
I can't find my gloves.
Who kill in self-defense, or who are going to be under the law of capital punishment, what else?
I disagree with the laws of capital punishment. I do think they are systemic murder, and they are immoral.
What else do you find immoral about the moral guideline of you shall not murder?
Sorry? What else did I find? Why should I have to provide other examples?
About the immoral guideline of you shall not murder. Forgetting.
Well, the problem is.
Just a minute.
You just had a minute. You're asking me to answer, and I'm trying to answer now.
Oh, man. Are you such an atheist? Okay. Putting aside self-defense, putting aside killing and warfare, putting aside those who are under capital punishment, tell me what you find immoral about the moral guideline. Do not murder. You shall not murder.
I'm not putting those aside, and I'll tell you why. The King James Bible and the Hebrew Bible, the original Hebrew one, specify thou shalt not kill. That's Commandment 6. It's not thou shalt not murder. It's thou shalt not kill. Murder is a subset of killing. So my examples stand, and they stand on their own merits.
No.
Well, go ahead and let's take a look at. No, let's take a look. Let's open up Exodus 20, King James Version of the Bible, and go to verse number 13. It says right there, "Thou shalt not kill." It uses the word "kill."
We're at time, and I would love to hear that go on. I really would.
I'm okay with it.
Discussion, but yeah, we're at time.
Ooh, spicy.
Wow, boy. What, man? That started to get a little fun there. I thought the pants were going to come off. I mean, gloves were going to come off.
Spicy. So, real quick, what do you think so far, Eddie?
On winner, loser, or just a debate?
Yeah, what do you think's going on? Yeah.
I think that Gavin has failed significantly in the original title of the debate. A lot of issues with Randolph's position, but that's not what this is about. And I think Randolph took this one.
Yep, and we have the closing statements, and to be clear, because there are a lot of new names I see in the chat. We're not afraid to. We are the Atheist Roundtable, but I think 2 out of the last 3 debates we've had come up to this one, we've given the theists the edge on the debate, so we're not afraid to call a spade. And really, the way I base it, to try to stay as neutral as possible, is I base it on argumentation. Who gave the best argument? Doesn't mean I agree with you on either side, but who gave the best argumentation? And so far, I'm not convinced that the 10 Commandments are the way we need to be, what we need to be following to live a moral life, or an ethical life, whatever word you want to put on there. But as far as presentation, so far I'd go to the atheist side on this one. So we do have the closing statements left. So let's see what they got in store for us. And one last time, everybody in the chat, thanks for hanging out. I see my boy Ethan from YFNA is hanging out with us. Good to see him, my man. And hold on, everybody. Welcome, Titan. Your anus is in the building.
Anus.
We got to do at least once a feed. And then this is the time. So they're going to have 5-minute closing statements. This is the time if you want to put questions in there. I know they're going to rattle off fast, so please tag Oz on there so I can see them. And the super chat is activated. That's the easiest way for me to keep track of it because my ADHD brain sees all the colors. I'm like, oh, cool, colors, and I can pick those out. So let's get to it, Eddie. And then remember, we'll come back to this with the Q&A. So go ahead and start stacking those up there, and we'll see y'all in a minute.
All right, Gavin, you started, so I think we let you go first.
Sure.
Okay,
so this is closing statement, right, Dr. Josh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think I've successfully pointed out that my opponent's position is one of moral non-cognitivism. My opponent admitted that he sets his own standards that are purely subjective. Now, if somebody's moral standards are purely subjective, then they quickly dissolve into moral non-cognitism, which says that there is no moral truth or falsity. Now, if you're a moral non-cognitive, you will hold a position something like Hitler and the Holocaust was neither immoral or moral, but this is a delusional meta-ethical position to hold because a non-cognitivist denies the cognitive claim that moral judgments are capable of being objectively true. This is common knowledge. This is not rocket science. The atheist uses information gained by his senses and his brain to arrive at truth and logic. But here's the problem. Neuroscience has proven that the brain can be fallible and the senses can be fallible. However, the Christian does not just use his or her senses and brain. The Christian uses the word of God, the Bible, the scripture, to arrive at absolute truth and absolute logic, because we can gain those truths and logics through the infinite mind of God, because God is necessary and perfect. God is necessary and perfect. I'm pretty much finished. It was very difficult for me to get a clear answer from my opponent. There was a lot of dodging going on, a lot of dodging. And I would have appreciated much more clearer answers than dancing around the head of a pin. So we really didn't get into the meat of the Ten Commandments, but I think my opponent's non-cognitivist position hindered us a lot in getting into the meat of the Ten Commandments. And with that, I yield to my learned opponent.
Thank you very much, Gavin. It's never been this heated between us before, and that was kind of interesting. Dodging. I attempted to answer questions accurately, but they were generally broad, incomplete, and almost hypothetical. As far as the moral non-cognitivism goes, yes, I set my own objective standards. That is definitely true. And as far as I know, everybody does. Some people will rely on other sources. Some people will come up with it on their own, or a combination of these things is usually where it comes from, in my observation, my understanding. When you mention that Adolf Hitler and the Holocaust being neither moral or immoral is where non-cognitivism leads, this is where you have mischaracterized me, because that is not how I think. And I consider that to be an attempt at a straw man, and I say attempt because it failed, and here's how it is trivially defeated in one statement. I oppose what Adolf Hitler did. I think it is immoral, and I think it is wrong, and that is my subjective opinion, and I stand by it. You did correctly state that human brains are not perfect and are infallible. I say, yes, that is correct, and it also applies to the author of the Bible, which justifies doubting the veracity of the claim that it is the perfect word of God. So I will leave people with one thing to think about. Instead of 10 commandments, a general guideline that I live by is how to live well. One is there's 4 areas in our life that we need. One is that we need to get sleep for recovery and rejuvenation. Number 2 is we need to have family and friends. We need relationships. Number 3, we need work, education, and or volunteering. And that would be a productive activity. And then number 4, we need hobbies and exercise, fun activities. And it's pretty wide open and straightforward. And I believe that if people have all 4 of these things in their life, they live a very well-balanced life. Now, I understand that not everyone's going to do that. And the most important underlying thing about being a human being is that inherently and implicitly, we are free to think what we want, to form our own opinions, and we should definitely be free to express ourselves in any way we please. And unfortunately, the 10 Commandments place a lot of limitations on these things. So that is why I reject the 10 Commandments overall, and I did give specific reasons. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you for another great debate, and we will get to Q&A here in a second. And I apologize. I had a little spill here right before we I'm trying to clean up so it doesn't get on my stuff here. But we'll jump in there, and real quick, if I can, just to plug it one last time here. Pull this up. This PayPal down here at the bottom, what that's for is for those that don't know Jenna Belk, she's one of the co-hosts on the Atheist Experience. She is getting ready to have little baby Belk, and we're running a raffle to help her with, whether it's diapers, clothes, cribs, that kind of thing. And you go there, and we're doing $10 minimum, entries or donations to that, and 10% of what we collect will go to the winner of the raffle. And yes, I'll tell you how to win here in a minute. And the rest of it will go to the Belk family to help them. So what you do is if you go to that link, you do $10, or you can give more, but $10 minimum. And you pick in the notes, put the date that you think baby Belk is coming. And her due date is the first week of July. And whoever hits it gets the prize. And if we happen to have a tie, this is the kind of fun part, from the TART perspective, the dumb part is you have to guess Murdershed Steve's weight. So not the baby's weight, but Murdershed Steve's weight. So
with or without the axe.
Hey, Gavin, have a seat, bud.
Is that with or without the axe?
We'll go without, because we don't know if he bought a standard axe or is it
That's a cool 120 pounds.
Man, how did I do that right before we had to go live, or I had to go back on live? All right, so we can get to questions. Let me see who's tagged me on here. All right. Thank you, Atheist Cats. $5 super chat. What good is a commandment if the punishment is avoided by being sorry and worshiping the right God? And Gavin, I would assume that was to you.
What good is the commandment if someone says sorry and worships the right God?
What good is a commandment if the punishment is avoided by being sorry and worshiping the right God?
Well, there's nothing wrong with the commandment. It's a good commandment.
No, he's saying what good is a commandment? So what good is it to have that kind of a commandment?
Yeah, well, the way they've couched the question is pretty word salady. Can you make it clearer for me, Oz?
I mean, I think from a theological standpoint, the question is if God is giving commandments and one can avoid the punishment of not murdering, for example, if they repent and worship the right God, worship the deity, to avoid that punishment, what good is the commandment, I think is the question.
Right. Well, the commandment is there as a hedge against committing the crime or committing the immoral act.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm looking for the. There's one I saw here. I was trying to find it.
You spilled something, and I shut my stuff down. So there we're even.
We're on a roll, folks. Welcome to the Atheist Roundtable. I know there was more. Where'd it go? Sorry, I guess I had it pulled up here, and I was tagged in some, and now they're gone.
I did see a comment from Simply Secular, which is quite humorous. It says, "Axe-free Steve, I don't want to live in such a world."
Yeah. Where did oh, okay, here we go. Oh, that's the same one I just asked. Never mind.
Maybe if you had a question and you put it up, maybe type it again.
Yeah, I was about to say you might want to retype it again because oh, here we go. And I can't pull this up on the screen because the way it is, so I'll just read it. From Redefine Living, question for atheists: can Gavin take your life and win, or do you like that commandment and you lose?
I value my life, so Gavin can't take it right now. But if I was in a situation that I think warranted it, and Gavin was the only person who could give me relief, such as I was suffering from a terminal illness, let's say, and I know it's only going to get worse, and I'm at a point where I don't want to live anymore, then I would be okay with someone like Gavin or anybody else doing that, as long as I had confidence in their competency in doing it.
Okay. Gavin, question.
The answer is it's situational.
Okay. Gavin, question for you. Do you think the recent Capitol event in the U.S. on January 6th is supported by the 10 Commandments or no?
I live in New Zealand, is my answer. How would I know?
So Gavin has no clue. That's the answer. He doesn't live here.
Yeah, I'm clueless.
That's a fair answer.
We'll let you slide on that one.
Thank you, sir.
I think that might be it. There's a couple there that I'm not gonna, just out of respect, I'm not gonna read out loud.
Yeah, I'm okay with any kind of question, even troll questions. It's in case you're wondering. Yeah.
Well, it's just out of respect. There's certain boundaries that we won't cross here. So
I trust your judgment.
I'll hear a couple popped up here. For Gavin, are there any commandments that address? Nope, I'm not doing that. I should have read that before I did it.
Now I'm curious.
Yeah, that's.
I also hope you're well. I'll keep it moving.
I was killing us with suspense.
No, I'm not doing it. All right, that's all. Now I'll kind of keep an eye on it here for a second, but I'll do my rounds and make sure I give you guys the props you deserve. So one more time, Randolph, we've had quite a few people hanging out with us and chilling out with us. So one more time, plug your stuff. Where can everybody find you? And let's hear about it.
Okay, well, thank you for including me in this debate on TART, the Atheist Roundtable. It's always wonderful to be here and be a part of this. I greatly appreciate it. My website, personal website, is at www.randolfrichardson.com. You can find me on Twitter at www.twitter.com/Randolph828. And I will be co-hosting a show in the near future with Neil, the 604 Atheist, called True North Talk. You can read more about that at www.truenorthtalk.ca. It'll be an atheist call-in program. We'll cover any topic almost except for politics, because that's just way too divisive. That never makes people happy. You can also find out more about the Canadian Atheists at www.canadianatheists.ca. Thank you very much for having me on this program with you.
Awesome. Nope. Always love having you. And Gavin, I'll just let everybody know when you're ready to go to New Zealand. Gavin knows where to send you to get food, and then he'll take you to a kickboxing gym. And and kick the shit out of you. No, I'm kidding. Anything else you'd like to add, Gavin?
We'll have a merry old time.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just want to say thanks so much to Randolph. Thanks, Oz. Thanks, everybody involved with the debate. I'd love to do another round with Randolph about another topic to do with God and the Bible. Thanks so much for running a tight ship and a professional ship and playing it straight down the middle. Couldn't ask for anything better.
Thank you, Gavin.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, and we appreciate that, and thank you guys for being well prepared when you came in. I do have a couple of questions here before Dr. Josh and Eddie plug away here. So, Gavin, if the Bible is inerrant, is a beaver a fish and a bat a bird?
Is a beaver a fish and a bat a bird? Don't know. Don't know.
That sounds like a reference to something in the Bible claiming those things. I've heard the latter part of that before. I didn't know that the Bible has a claim of a beaver being a fish. That's but I haven't read the whole Bible.
Why not?
When I was really young, I started looking into it because people told me that I should read it, and I couldn't get very far into Genesis, the beginning of it, because I just found it didn't seem like a
just say it. It's boring. It's boring. Just say.
Yeah, I found contradictions, and I just lost interest and moved on to other things. So that's the way it is.
Gavin, did you have any comments on the beavers and the birds and the stuff?
No.
Gavin, do you believe in categorical imperative?
What does that mean?
Kant.
What is a categorical imperative?
Categorical imperative.
It's Immanuel Kant's ethical system.
So would "you shall not murder" be in categorical impediment?
From what I remember, it is along the lines of it's an ethical system that doesn't require God. So it would be more like a normative type of ethics.
Right.
For suffering and wellness and things of that nature.
Right. Well, the difficulty is that all of us are seriously flawed human beings. So whether we admit it or not, we do need God.
All right, and then,
I'm not to respond to that. I find that insulting as somebody who doesn't believe in deities for anybody to say that I can't be moral without God. I consider that nonsense, and I object to it. So I can't accept it because I'm living proof of somebody who's not having problems with the criminal justice system and things like that. I'm not going out there causing problems for people, serious problems of any sort. I'm advocating for freedom and human rights and things like that. In my own subjective opinion, I'm doing the best I can to live a good life, just as many religious people also do. So when somebody comes along and says that I can't make these decisions without God, what they're basically saying is that I can't think for myself, and I take that as an insult, and I object to it.
Okay, fair enough. And then, Gavin, does the commandment worshiping one God interfere with free will?
No.
Okay, that was easy.
A short and straightforward answer. I think they might be hoping for a why, but
that was pithy.
Maybe they'll ask another question. Why?
I almost did, but I actually like it just short like that. It's
great. Yeah, I like it.
It's badass. Then Randolph, a question for you. What objective standard do you have for evaluating moral truths? If you do not have one, doesn't that make you a delusional, moral, non-cognitive?
They're throwing the word delusional in there now. Actually, there's a number of standards, I guess you could say, a number of ideas that I put together for that. And the primary one, and I highly recommend looking into it, is John Rawls, Rawls is the name of the author. And he's a philosopher who's not like a lot of other philosophers, he was very laser focused in his area. Usually philosophers go all over the place and cover a lot of different areas, but he was very focused, and his reading his books can be they're a bit dry, but and repetitive. But the Theory of Justice book contains a section in there on the veil of ignorance, and that concept is primarily intended for lawmakers. But I do find the whole process of it to be very useful in making moral determinations. A lot of people sum it up as empathy, but I think it takes a lot more effort than that, because you're considering a lot of different things that maybe instead of just one destination party, you're considering a whole gamut of a lot more. It's something I recommend highly looking into, or just look it up on YouTube. There's lots of videos explaining it. The Veil of Ignorance.
Okay. Yeah, I was just seeing if we have any more. Looks like we're good to go here. So, Eddie
question didn't come up, huh?
Eddie Crum de la Crum. Where can they find you, man?
In France. No, it's I'm at Brookfax on YouTube live every every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central. Tomorrow's show will be at 7:30. Special request by the guest. Check me out. I go live, and the videos usually stay up.
Well, that's good. We don't want them going down.
That's well, you got to wonder sometimes.
Oh God, I was gonna make a joke. Just shut up, Austin.
Yeah. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Dr. Josh, how about you?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think probably just to throw my 2 cents in here, the difficulty of this debate, I think, is that it sort of hinged on the moral standard, right? If the question is the 10 Commandments, are they moral or are they immoral? And could we provide better examples or modify them in such a way to reach, a better morality? You almost have to come into the debate agreeing on what it is that we mean by morality. And I think, unfortunately, that's a difficult question to agree on here. So, I mean, from Gavin's perspective, the biblical texts are the inspired word of God, and therefore God's word is inerrant, and his commands are holy and just. So there's no question from that perspective. Can they be more moral? No, of course not, because God, is the standard of morality. Whereas, of course, Randolph doesn't adhere to that. And so trying to then get at what is your basis for morality, because mine is the perfect, the perfect word of God. And it's in that from that perspective, it's more, obviously more perfect, to use sort of terrible wording there. But so I feel like this it wasn't able to get off the ground because there wasn't that, that commonality that we could reach. But no, I enjoyed listening to it, and I appreciate both of you guys, how you made my job very easy tonight, I think. But anyway, we are at Digital Hammurabi, Digital Hammurabi. We ancient Near Eastern stuff, ancient Mesopotamia, Sumerian, Akkadian, Hebrew Bible, Old Testament stuff. We like to covering those sorts of things on our YouTube channel, and we're on Twitter, and my wife is the brains behind the whole operation. So
thanks, Dr. Josh.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Josh, for being in the ref and keeping these wild guys in line. And Eddie, thanks. Last minute notice for hanging out with me tonight and helping. Definitely appreciate that. But we are the Atheist Roundtable, and we're actually going to have a.
I see another question in the chat from Simply Secular. Looks pretty good, and I think both Gavin and I could probably answer if you've got a few more minutes.
Come on, Randolph. We were almost done.
Hey, have you ever been to Neil the 604 Atheist after parties? He gives these great 45-minute warnings by saying, we're going to end the stream in a few minutes.
All right.
No, I'm here all night. I don't have anything planned. Shoot away.
Yep. And because we love Simply Secular, we will stick around. And if you don't like it, I'm kidding. So could the average person today write a better list of moral guidelines to live by, which would improve overall quality of life for Gavin and or both? Yeah, both.
Yeah.
I'll go first, and I'll say no. I don't think so.
The average person, I think, probably could. I think it would depend partly on how much thought that average person put into morality and ethics, and if they were striving to do something better than the Bible, I think it would definitely be a bit easier because they'd have it to draw from and be able to come up with some comparative things. So I think the answer to it is, in general, I lean toward the yes side on that. Hey, congratulations, Pastor Mike. I should tune in for that.
Eddie missed it. All right, so yeah, we're gonna go and wrap it up, and give me 1 second here, just to be safe. So everybody's been in the chat. There's been a bunch of people in there, so I won't have time to go through and catch everybody. But thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Had a great crowd, great conversations going on in the chat, and so we appreciate that. We're gonna have a couple days off here as far as streaming. We just went 4 days back to back, but we'll be back. What's today's date? The 18th. So. Yeah, next week we have a couple more debates. J. Mike and David Gonzalez are going to be debating on the 23rd. On the 23rd, we have Godless Engineer and Jason from Dragons and Genesis coming to debate on who was Jesus with the alternate media crew. There's some other ones coming up too. But again, thank you guys so much. Eddie, anything you want to say before we disappear?
I probably should keep it to myself, but that was a great debate, great show. Saw Pasta Mike in there. Love you, Pasta Mike. And man, we got to do more of these, man. It's if you know what I mean. So.
All right. Well, everybody, it's Monday. We got a week ahead of us, so pull your britches up and get ready for a good week.